Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending our village meeting tonight. Just a quick reminder, if you can please put your cell phones on silent. This is recorded, so just with the noise, it's hard to hear with the microphones as it's being recorded. As you can see, Mayor Ryan is absent tonight, so if I could please get a motion to have Trustee Dalzell be pro Mayor Tem.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. If you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First up is the mayor's report, and as he's here, it's going to be a short one. John is presently with his dad celebrating his father's birthday, so congratulations to Mr. Ryan on his birthday. And Clerk Harding.
Thank you. Clerk's report tonight, I have the presentation of Committee of the Whole Finance meetings for the dates of April 12th, 2021, April 26th, 2021, and May 17th, 2021. I also have presentation of the May 10th, 2021 committee meeting minutes and the May 17th, 2021 board meeting minutes, and the presentation of the April 2021 IDOT motor fuel tax allotment and the amount of $63,504.10. And that is all I have tonight.
Thank you. Public forum, is there anybody in the audience who'd like to address the board about anything? No takers? All right, thank you. Standing committees, Finance and Information Technology, Trustee McLaurin.
As usual, I will have the list of payroll and accounts payable for approval next week. Next, I put on the agenda discussion of the handling of new position requests for budget purposes. And again, and this is just for discussion purposes, but at this time what I would like to propose, one, I think it makes it easier on the board, and two, it definitely makes it easier on the finance director. If we, per se, pull any new proposed positions actually out of the budget and approve those individually, that way Joyce is not dealing with a moving target in terms of what's in the budget, and by addressing them all individually, we can weigh their merits and do a corresponding budget amendment for anything that we do decide to approve. Again, I think that makes the whole picture much clearer. We understand the exact cost of adding a new position, and at this point in time, since we're already into the fiscal year, we know it's not going to be a full year figure anyway. So you had a question, Joyce, or?
Can I add to what you're saying?
Sure.
I think that we need to formalize the process more, and actually, like we do with the capital assets, where we have a requisition sheet similar to that. So there's a description of the position, a job description, what its purpose is, what it's going to bring to the village. I think that would be very beneficial for the board members to be able to see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, as I say, a position description would be required for authorization anyway. And I think, and I say at this point in time, I mean, one, we don't have those things.
Right.
And second, by actually pulling these out and addressing them individually, we don't want to give the misimpression that all positions are automatically approved once we approve the budget, because they are two separate issues, and I think we ought to address them that way.
Also, I talked to Mayor Ryan about this morning, and what we discussed was getting the salary ordinance passed prior to the budget being passed, because that's where those discussions of new positions would take place, and therefore we can put the salary numbers into the budget, which has kind of been happening the other way, and the budget's not been updated with the new salary figures. So that's another recommendation I would have. But I understand what you're saying, and it can be done, but I just think we need to formalize it a little bit so that we're all kind of working from the same place.
Mm-hmm. Anybody have any questions or issues?
And just, because I do have, and I have presented to the board on a couple occasions, just the discussion about the creation of a community development director position. So when would be the appropriate time then to have the HR manager also involved in the job description?
They would have to help to get the job descriptions defined, I would think.
Before we, so then will we just approve the position and then, kind of like the chicken before the, okay,
No, we can't approve the position without a formal job description.
okay.
Right.
So then with the job description, and then we'll bring it to the board for a vote.
When we're ready to do the salary ordinance,
Okay.
because that would be the time.
Well, it doesn't
I-
have to be at that point in time. Because especially new positions, we could potentially create at any point in time over the fiscal year. And we're not going to hold up the salary ordinance pending
Okay.
new positions that, may not start for the second half of the year.
That's true. I just would like to have that salary ordinance before we pass the budget, so that I have the
Yeah.
numbers.
Sure you would.
That's my wish.
Right. Any other questions on that topic? Okay, and then finally, discussion of the Canadian National and Kansas City Southern Railway merger?
Yes.
I have no knowledge of this one, so it's all on you, Joyce.
In your packet is the description of what this entails, and there's a map that actually shows where the railways would run, and that it talks about that it would increase the traffic, the rail traffic through the southern suburbs by about 25%. This came from the Mayor's Caucus. This information came from them, and they are recommending that we send a letter indicating that we do not support this. I don't know that, there's pluses and minuses both ways. I mean, increased rail traffic could potentially bring more business into Alsip. But then increased rail traffic also impacts our fire and safety response times. It impacts our getting to work on time. It impacts a lot of things. So I'm putting this out here for discussion as to whether we want to send a letter to these folks to indicate that we do or do not want this merger to happen. This is again from the Mayor's Caucus, and they would like our input to that.
Isn't the railroads federally mandated?
The merger is federal, and that's what they're asking us to send the letter for. We're
Right.
going to send to the chief of the Section Administration of Office Proceedings for Surface and Transportation Board in
Is-
Washington, D.C.
Doesn't it seem like on a scope of federal that we're well below that level?
We are below that level, but we're trying to put a voice into letting them hear our opinion about whether we want it or not. Not whether we can do it or not, it's just putting our voice into it. Potential, like I said, potential economic impact, but then a potential impact to some of our departments directly.
I mean, it just seems to me that we've got a limited number of rail crossings in our community. So we share 111th, we've got 115th, 123rd,
Costner.
Coster.
Yes, Costner.
I mean, yes, it wouldn't really impact 127th.
No, they have an overpass.
And I say
Right.
we're sharing even 111th.
SRO is the same.
But definitely 123rd and 115th.
That's why I brought it forth, was to have discussion about it, and, if we don't want to send a letter, we don't want to send a letter.
I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, been out of the game for a long time here, so I used to write a lot of those tickets, but I don't anymore. So I don't know what impact we have, how many times public safety has been thwarted from going across an intersection, what the inconvenience level is for the public. Chicago because of the lake and because of the rails. And it's what moves a lot of our product across the country, so if we're sitting there and saying no, are we saying no to advancement in commercial, industrial.
I agree with you. We have some properties that could potentially use some sidings that, that might be important to them if there's additional traffic through here,
Right.
which could have an impact to our financial side of it.
Yeah. I guess I'd like to see more data myself so that I could make a more informed decision.
I'll see what I can get.
Because when I read through that packet, it appeared that that map was not necessarily complete with all the rail spurs that were going in the areas.
Okay. Let me see what I can get by next week.
I appreciate it. Anybody else thoughts or chew on it for a bit?
I don't think anybody in the room really wants more rail traffic.
Yeah.
I probably hit Costner 5 times a week with catching a train, and they're not getting any shorter.
No, and I sat for almost a half an hour last week before I finally gave up at 123rd.
And in days and old, we used to be able to cite the railroad for blocking.
But we
And,
can't do that anymore.
The feds mandated that that doesn't happen anymore. Anything else on the railroads? No. We'll move on to fire. Trustee Murphy.
No report tonight, sir.
All right. Police and traffic safety, I have nothing on the docket. Chief? No. Nothing for that. Public Works, boat launch. Trustee Juarez.
No report.
Sewer and Water. Trustee Nava-Esparza.
No report this evening.
Building and Health. Trustee Peretta.
No report at this time.
Human Resources and Insurance. Trustee Murphy.
No report, sir.
Moving on to special committee reports, Economic Development, Trustee Nava-Esparza.
Thank you. I have, the first item is further discussion regarding the creation of the Community Development Director position. And I placed this on the agenda, and I placed this on a couple of agendas as well. And I know Trustee Peretta is just joining us for this discussions, and I did forward information to Trustee Peretta about the position, a couple of job descriptions from other municipalities that were kind to provide me with some of those descriptions. And the next phase will then be to develop a job description that the board will then approve. And just a point that I want to make in regards to why I see this role important is that this role would be vital in the implementation phase of our community development efforts. We have a comprehensive plan that's sitting. We have a Pulaski action plan that's sitting. And having a staff person checking and seeing what benchmarks or best practices or recommendations that the consultants that were hired to create these plans, that money was spent creating these plans, are we actually implementing them? And the other agenda item that I have is kind of highlighting the Pulaski Road Corridor signage, or the campaign that was developed by a consultant. And again, we need to revisit these plans and see if they're actually doing what they were intended to do, right? Market the community or bring businesses, retain or attract them here. So that's why the Community Development Director is important to, yes, focus on economic development, but also community development, which also encompasses a bigger picture about our community, connectivity, environmental impacts, also maybe public art as well, community engagement with our business community and residents, where are their voices in the planning process. So hopefully with the examples that I provided of the number of jobs that do exist at different municipalities, the board was able to see kind of direction or the role that I see that this person would kind of fit, how they would fit into the fabric of our community. Are there any questions about the position or any of the documents that I provided?
Yeah,
the board?
I have a question.
Sure.
So we want to make the creation of a community development director. We don't have that person now, so who does that now, or who's supposed to do that now? This position that we're creating, who's actually supposed to, or does that now?
We have a building official or building commissioner, but his role doesn't really focus on, let's say, design elements like urban design. And that individual would work in partnership with the building commissioner to make sure that, we're adhering to zoning ordinances and so forth like that in codes, and also to beautify our community. There's talk about beautification efforts. Yes, you can plant flowers, that's one aspect of it, but also signage. I think along Pulaski, there's so many poles that are just sticking out of the ground, signs that are way too high in the air, and also referencing the Pulaski action plan, there was recommendations to have more monument signs that are lower to the ground and with landscaping and so forth. So there isn't an individual that's focused, I think, specifically in design elements or connectivity issues, or maybe public art, for example. So to answer your, hopefully that answers your question.
Yes. Thank you.
Anything else on that?
Oh, and then the second item that I have is discussion regarding the beautification of the Pulaski Road corridor. It's on Pulaski signage removal. I was going to post a picture up here, but I think all of us are familiar as we go up and down the corridor of the It's on Pulaski signs. I'm recommending to remove those. I think they were either implemented in 2013, and I think they're a little bit outdated at this point, and they don't really contribute to some of the placemaking of letting people know that they're in Alsip, or kind of like it's on Pulaski, but what's on Pulaski. I think that there also needs to be an additional step of either creating, like maybe, for example, a separate website with a business directory, letting people know what businesses actually exist. Again, that's what a staff person might be able to do, such as the community development director. So I think for now, I think they're a little bit of an eyesore because when the wind blows, they're kind of spinning around and so forth. So I'm not sure how we would move forward either as a board, either consensus now or at the next meeting deciding if we'd want to remove some of that signage. Also the brown signs, I did take some pictures which I can email to the board. Some of them are covered by trees. And also the brown signs are used more as a designation for historic or touristy sites. We don't really have a touristy zone in the corridor, so I think also, again, maybe rethinking about what type of signage would be appropriate along the corridor to kind of minimize, in my opinion, which looks like a cluttered look on our corridor.
I have one trustee, Nava Esparza. I actually have been working with the person who did our Village of Alsip sign, and we actually, he's going to be giving me prices on, we're going to take the signs down, and he can actually cut them, and we can actually reuse them. I've actually talked with Mike Frater that they can actually use them if they need them for certain things. So I do the beautification, so I have been working a lot with the signs and the things that we need. It's just, unfortunately, in budget-wise, beautification is a whole separate thing. It's not even part of our budget. It's money that we have to fund, that I do fundraising for. So it takes a while to come up with funds and money for that. So, but I am actually working on that.
Well, as a board member that's chairing the Economic Development Committee, and with Pulaski Corridor kind of falls under that, it'd be nice to be updated if projects like that are also occurring. And also if the board to have input. I believe the last implementation of the Pulaski Action Plan, the board approved, I think, some of the signage that was used.
Right.
So were you planning on having us involved in some of the discussions? Because this is the first I hear of it.
Well, yeah, because I'm not going to bring it to you until I actually have an idea of how much it's going to cost. I have to look to see. There was a plan when they actually put those signs in. I've been getting different things told to me that it was under something else with the Pulaski thing.
The TIF.
With the Pulaski signs and how they were put in, and I don't know if it was through
Your TIF monies.
the TIF monies and stuff like that. So I just wanted to, but yeah, but we don't have a beautification like ordinance kind of thing, so which is another thing that I was actually going to be working on with the mayor and the attorneys. I found a lot of other villages do have that, an ordinance for a beautification committee where you can have a chairperson who is part of economic development be a part of the beautification, and then also put it in terms for like anybody who wants to be a part of it, they would actually be termed, like 2-year term to be on a beautification committee kind of thing, so that they can be more involved, and then they would actually be involved with the trustee as well.
Actually, I think we're mid-evolution on this because during the budget process, it was discussed that the beautification committee was being drawn out of the budget process.
Yep.
Because it was being done with public donations.
Public donations.
Right.
Right.
So I think we're kind of in flux.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, the beautification committee then is transforming to more like an economic advisory committee, or, because I guess I have a picture in my head what beautification committee, I guess, activities would entail versus more of a formal,
I don't think they're the economic side. I think it was
There's
just...
no economics part of it. It's just beautifying, doing the flowers, trying to get the community involved, which we've, like doing the flowers in the springtime, to doing the mums, to I keep up the Village of Alsip welcome signs.
My question then would be, whose final decision is that, to pick that sign, to pick that flower, where it's going to go? Whose decision is that?
It's mine.
All yours?
So-
Well, I think it was the evolution was that they're going to, in essence, create a new committee.
Right.
Okay.
so then the beautification committee would pick the signs for the Pulaski corridor, if I'm understanding it correctly.
If we were to put, even if we were even to put any more signs, like to take them down right now, yes, I totally agree with you. They're brown, they're awful, but to come up with a different concept, or honestly, it's just the beginning stages to see if we even wanted to put any more signs up. I don't think we need to have anything that says it's on Pulaski or something on there. We have our Welcome to Village of Alsip signs.
Well, that was the branding, though,
Right,
at the
the
time.
branding. So, I mean, our talk is to maybe incentivize and do something with Cicero Avenue, and that is something that we would later discuss to try to do something on Cicero. And maybe reuse the signs and come up with an idea and get the residents involved in maybe deciding a contest or whatever as far as what kind of signs we can put on there.
Okay, I'll have further discussions with the mayor then. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I would definitely not see any issue with, say, using TIF money to take down the It's on Pulaski signs. I do agree that I think they've outlived their useful life and about time for them to go.
And they spin every time the wind blows, so. That's all I have.
Village Properties, Trustee McLaurin.
No reports this evening.
Ordinance Legislation, Trustee Peretta.
I have a request for approval of an ordinance of the Village of Alsip approving a second amended and restated agreement between the Village of Alsip and Barton Real Estate Holdings Incorporated for the sale and the redevelopment of property located at 11638-58 South Pulaski Road, Village of Alsip, County of Cook, State of Illinois, and the furtherance of the objectives of the redevelopment plan and project approved for the Pulaski Road Corridor TIF redevelopment project area. And that's all I have.
All right, that's actually slated for a special meeting following our committee meeting. So is there anybody who has discussion regarding this matter? Public, this is the barbecue, I forgot the name.
Firewater?
Thank you. No? Board? Okay. All right, Planning and Zoning and Licenses, Trustee Warren.
I have a discussion of case number 2021-05-S-400 for I-1 Industrial to I-1 Industrial Special Use Storage of Truck Trailers for the property located at 12427 South Kedville Avenue, Alsip, Illinois. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a hearing on Wednesday, May 5th, 2021, and unanimously voted in favor of with the vote of 7-0. I also have a discussion of case number 2021-05-S-500 for B1 Business to B1 Business Special Use for a gas station and convenience store for the property located at 12220 South Cicero Avenue and 12250 South Cicero Avenue, Alsip, Illinois. The Planning and Zoning Commissioner held a hearing on Wednesday, May 5th, 2021, and unanimously denied the request with a vote of to 7-0. Number 3, I have a discussion of case number 2017-5-S-100 for an I-2 Industrial to an I-2 Special Use to allow for transportation logistics for property located at 11633 South Mayfield. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a hearing on Wednesday, June 14th, 2017, with a 5-0 vote in favor of. And number 4, I have a presentation of a list of licenses dated May 10th, 2021 through May 24th, 2021. So if we can go back to number 2 really quick. I have printed out, trustees, and I gave you all a packet that I received from residents. I only printed out 14 because my printer ran out of paper, I ran out of ink. So I made copies of what I had, so you guys got the first 14 or 15 emails that I received. And in the emails, the residents are protesting against the Quick Trip gas station / convenience store, and on the following grounds. The traffic on 122nd Street is already unmanageably heavy. Alsip does not need another 24-hour gas station so close to 2 other operating gas stations. The resulting noise, litter, light, and what the facility might attract is not appropriate for the location, which is bordered on 2 sides by residential areas. There is likely to be an increase in the apparent prostitution that can be occasionally observed in the area. We object to any measure that interferes with the quiet enjoyment of our property, already compromised by the existing traffic and further threatened by the expansion at Coca-Cola. And the installation of a facility will quickly reduce our property values, ultimately turning our association into a slum. Anybody else have anything they want to say?
Well, I think that, when you kind of look at that property, for the benefit of the audience, we're talking about the Condesa del Mar property and the adjoining property to the south, if I'm not mistaken, with that strip mall. The Condesa del Mar property itself has not been occupied in 8 years. And to my knowledge, there has not been an offer on that property ever. What's in the packet and what I observed is that the Quick Trip gas station would not only clear the property of the existing building, which is falling apart. I mean, let's call it for what it is. And Condesa del Mar has been trying to sell this property for some time. They're paying monthly to have it not be so much of an eyesore, if that's a good way of putting it. But it's the paint's peeling, and the building, quite frankly, has to go. We had the sign taken down a number of years ago per ordinance, and I guess in the packet they're going to level the building. They're going to put in a convenience store, a filling station, as well as they are advocating for 6 acres of green space out of the 12, and from what I understand, another acre they're giving to the village to do with as they see fit in whatever capacity. So I guess the real question here for my money is, if we have not had an offer on this 12 acres in 8 years, when will the next one come along? And what will it be? And I understand there's truck traffic there, and I understand that, there's residents that wouldn't want this, but what would be appropriate in that spot? Let's shoot for the sky. Let's shoot for the stars. Let's say everyone wants a big box store, and we just came off of a lot of campaigning, and a lot of people had talked a lot about what they would want in the village, and how come we don't have an IKEA, and how come we don't have a Nordstrom's, and all those things, which are great. But in 8 years, nobody has come forth to recommend putting something of that nature in that spot. If IKEA did come along, would that be an acceptable building to put up? I see the same problems. Inundation of truck traffic, car traffic, 122nd. What's the answer? You know, with taking down this facility and the Condesa the way it is, and clearing it out and putting a brand-new business that will facilitate not only more retail sales, motor fuel tax, retail sales tax, and property taxes. I don't know.
Well, I'm going to put on my planning hat. I went to planning school, so that's why I'm also petitioning for the community development position. Is that you can't ignore the existing uses that are there. You have a BP gas station, and you also have a Shell gas station. What about those uses that are already there? And then also, again, congestion is also valid. The environmental impacts, also valid question. And if it's already been vacant for 8 years, they're still paying property taxes on that property, right?
I would imagine.
Yes.
And so what's maybe another year or 2 or 5 years, if they're still paying taxes on that property, to wait for a better use of that land?
Not to mention, we have a planning and zoning committee for a reason, and they denied this process 7-0. And most importantly, we should really keep in consideration the thoughts and the wants of our residents. Hear, hear. That's what's most important.
We do have a representative here who wants to put on a display of what the grounds would look like. If the board would like to, Andrew Smith would be more than happy to put that presentation on and give you guys a bird's eye view of exactly what they plan on doing there before you guys say yes or no. I think would be the best idea, is to see what exactly they're proposing and let the public see what he's also proposing. What he took from the planning and zoning, the next morning, he went out, sent us all an email stating that they were willing to cut out into the right-of-way, give part of their property to a right-of-way, do a third lane on all of their property, also put in a bike lane that one of the public asked for. She had made a statement that she had no clear way of making it through there without going on to Cicero. They're offering to do a bike path. Why not? Let's see what Andrew has to present to us and make an informed decision.
Andrew, please.
Oh, the clicker? You want to sit here?
Take my mask off just so you can hear me okay.
If you're comfortable.
Hi, my name is Andrew Smith. I'm with Quick Trip. I've been working with Quick Trip for 13 years now. I actually got my start working in the stores, and that's actually a very common story at Quick Trip. Our CEO, he even started in the stores. All of our VPs worked in the stores at some point. And the corporate positions that we do hire from external, such as attorneys and things like that, even they have to go work a week in the store so that they can ultimately see why we're here and why we do what we do. So just a brief history. I'm not going to go through all these points. If you do have questions about the history of Quick Trip, I'm more than happy to answer those. We were founded in 1958 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Founding family still owns the company. Throughout the years, we've rapidly expanded into different markets. Most recently, we've gone to Austin, San Antonio, and we will be going to Denver, Colorado in the near future. We do constantly evolve. As the marketplace changes, we alter our offer to make sure that we are always successful in the locations where we operate. We are a very socially responsible company. We're almost always one of the Fortune 100 best companies to work for. We partner very closely with United Way. We give I believe it's 5% of our annual profits to charity every year. And in the markets that we operate, we even have a contributions committee, and those specifically go to organizations that help youth at risk, because we feel that that's very important to give back to the communities where we operate. Also regarding United Way, we match employee donations to United Way, and there are instances where we've had employees go work for United Way for an entire month, and we still pay their entire salary for them to work with United Way, just to create a more synergistic partnership. Every Quick Trip location is a safe place. Our employees are trained if there's an at-risk youth who comes to the store. We have a number that they can call, and they'll keep the child safe until a volunteer comes up to take them to a shelter or whatever type of facility. And I heard one concern was about crime. These are things that we offer at all of our locations. Law enforcement loves us. They stop with us frequently. So really, I worked overnights in the stores. I never once felt unsafe. We have very, very few issues because of the safe measures that we have in place. Additionally, we partner very closely with Folds of Honor. If you're not familiar with Folds of Honor, it is a scholarship program for the families of wounded warriors. We partner closely with them. We even have the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500, which is a race where we help get the word out about that organization, which is a very, very worthy cause. And then 25,000, we have just over 25,000 employees now, and that is ultimately the reason that we exist. Our entire purpose is to give employees the opportunity to grow and succeed. How do we do this? Well, for one, we retain employees long term. I'm a perfect example of this. I started working at Quick Trip when I was in college part-time just to get something to pay the rent, and 13 years later, here I am. We offer tuition reimbursements for students. This is something that drew me to Quick Trip. I don't know the exact numbers now, but when I was in college, they would offer you, I believe it was about $3,500 per semester just to stay in school. You work a certain number of hours, you have to maintain a certain GPA, and they give you money to stay in school. Even if you're going to take your degree and go work elsewhere, Quick Trip still makes that investment in you as a person. We have Quick Trip Cares, which is an employee disaster fund. All the employees donate to this, and if there is some sort of an event where an employee loses their home to a storm or something like that, some sort of unforeseen event, we have funds available to assist those employees in their time of need, which is a great program. We provide scholarships to the children of employees. We also strongly celebrate everybody's anniversary. 20 years, you get a plaque in the office. At 25 years, you get a month paid sabbatical. You get that every 5 years thereafter. We want to make sure that our employees really feel valued when they hit those milestones. We invest very heavily in employee security, and this was a point that I alluded to earlier. Every employee on duty will have a pager with 2 buttons on that. When they press those 2 buttons, it goes to a live feed at our security desk in Tulsa, and a security employee there is keeping an eye on the premises at all times. And so when they know that there's an emergency, they can then alert the authorities or call for a fire truck or something like that. Again, very rare that we have those situations, but we have that investment in place to give our employees peace of mind, and that's also a major deterrent to any issues. We do have 100% lock coverage with high-def cameras, audio and visual inside the store and out. High-def cameras, all employee-only areas are restricted with ID badges, so you have to be able to scan to get in. So we do take our security very seriously. Additionally, even during the pandemic, Quick Trip has never laid off an employee in the entire history of the company. We're very proud of that. Average store manager wage is $82,000 per year. We have an employee stock ownership program. At 21, you become an owner of the company, and Quick Trip gives you stock every year, and you can invest in the stock. We are still privately held. Like I said before, we promote from within. Each Quick Trip generates on average $1.3 million in state and local taxes. And then we were the Newsweek National Customer Service Award winner in our industry, so we do have a claim to being among the best at what we do. So here's our site plan. I'm not going to go through it in too much detail. I believe it was already described. But yes, we would be taking down the existing vacant building and the strip center to redevelop the entire site. Currently, very little landscaping. You can probably count on one hand the number of shrubs, maybe 10 to 15 trees total. So this would be our landscaping plan. I've highlighted all of the green space areas because it was a little hard to tell the difference between what's sod and seed and all that. Our landscape schedule, we're calling for almost 1,000 shrubs on site, over 50 trees, and right around 6 acres of green space of the 12. Here's our overall site plan. Our building, very much a modern building, not your typical convenience store by any stretch. At the last meeting, there were some questions about our interior offer. What is our store? how is our store different from everybody else? So here's a few pictures of our latest model store. As you can see, everything is very well merchandised, clean, modern architecture throughout the site. A few more pictures here. We do have in the back our Quick Trip kitchens. We have food that's prepared on site that has been very popular. We have pizzas and subs, tacos, and all sorts of different offers back there. We also have our own donuts. Quick Trip donuts are delivered every single day. They don't sit in the rack for a week at a time. We deliver everything fresh daily. A couple more pictures here. We have an ordering screen. That's where you order any of the food from the kitchen. Another picture of the building interior. There's a head-on shot of our kitchen. Our elevations of our canopy, they do match the building and most of the architectural features. There was a concern about environmental. We have an entire environmental team, and the fuel monitoring system that we have is the gold standard within the industry. We meet or exceed every EPA standard that applies to us. We go far above and beyond. We do a full phase 1 and phase 2 environmental testing, cleanup as needed on the site before we start construction. We work with the state closely to make sure that if a no further action letter is required, that we have that in hand. So we do take environmental concerns very seriously. I actually even submitted a packet that described all this in great detail to the village. So that's available if you would like to read about it in more detail. So here's the current view from the intersection. As you can see, like I said before, very little green space, and I know there was some talk about signage earlier. There's a tall multi-tenant sign that is a bit of an eyesore and pretty outdated. That will be going away. We'll be having a nice new greenscape, trees, shrubs along the frontages. Current view from 122nd Street, you've got a parking lot that's just about on top of 122nd, so those concerns about traffic and noise from cars is pushed up very close to the residents across the street. Both ours, that's pushed back much further, and we've also have evergreens that we're planning to plant along with shrubs and quite a bit of green space that pushes that pavement back from 122nd. Here's a rendering just of a straight-on shot of our store. And so at the Planning and Zoning Commission, we heard the feedback from the public and from the commission. We take this feedback to heart, and we want to make sure that we're bringing forth something where we've addressed those concerns, because we think it's important to be a responsible corporate citizen and work with the village. So I've highlighted a few of the changes here. On the left, this is the new bicycle path that we're proposing. This wasn't actually brought up as a specific recommendation to us, but it was more just based on feedback that we heard. There was somebody who mentioned that it would be tough for children from the north to get to the park to the southwest because they'd have to go along Cicero or cross private property, which you may or may not be allowed to do that depending on who the owner is. So we're proposing to add a new 8-foot bike path over here on the west side, so that if you're anywhere on the north or south and you want to get through the site, you can skip Cicero completely. We're also adding sidewalks around our entire perimeter, which does not exist today. There is some on Cicero, but a very small section on 123rd and none on 122nd currently. We're also adding an entire third lane, the length of 122nd, to our western property line. Currently, there's about 150 feet of stacking for those two turn lanes. This would increase that by like 400%. So very much going to alleviate that congestion, especially those left turners. That's what really starts to stack in most traffic situations. So if we give them their own lane, then those right turners can head back to the interstate more safely. There was a concern that was brought up, and it really isn't anything that has much to do with us developing, or it's just an existing condition that people are turning into the BP to skip the signal altogether. Adding that additional turn lane will greatly help that, because those left turners are now separated from the right turners. So, if you're sitting at a signal, you don't have to wait on the left turner in front of you because it's not stacking back that far anymore. There was also requests for a traffic study. We have conducted a preliminary traffic analysis. I'm not going to read every word of this, but I will just hit some of the key points here. So the first sentence here is just that from initial review, appears that the existing site is an excellent choice for a travel center based on its proximity to the interstate, presence of left turn lane on Cicero, and 2 existing signalized connections on the state highway. A point that I brought up at the previous hearing is that we aren't a true traffic generator. We primarily capture traffic on the existing roadway. And our traffic engineer goes on to explain this, that this is also their belief, and this is the assumption that all traffic engineers operate off of, because they have their standards they have to follow in the ITE standards, which they project that over 80% of our traffic is pass-by trips, which is traffic on the existing roadway. Now, I want to be very clear here. This doesn't say that we capture 80% of the traffic. It means that traffic specifically to our site, over 80% of that is already on the existing roadway. We capture a very small percentage of the traffic on the existing roadway, and an even smaller percentage of that would be new traffic. He looked at a few different options of uses that could go in here, existing uses if they came back, or future retail uses. All of those generated more traffic than our use based on new trips. Our new trips, he's estimated that it's roughly a 2% increase, which he also goes to point out. Traffic fluctuates on any day by 10%, so a 2% increase will not even be noticed. However, we are providing a number of traffic improvements, such as an additional lane and the pedestrian improvements, so you will notice the improvements that we bring, but you will not notice what you could see as the negative impact. So, and here he points out that also access to the site is improved with reduced curb cuts and better spacing from the interstate. And then I believe you also had mentioned one of our plans here too. I reached out to an economic development specialist for the area. She had referenced that she believed that many people wanted to see a sit-down restaurant here at some point. I work closely with a couple other developers. They've said that sit-down restaurants really aren't developing right now, recovering from the pandemic and such. So what is a way that we could hopefully guarantee that use sometime in the future, give the village the opportunity to have full control, and also know that somebody's actively being recruited? So what we came up with is we would be willing to dedicate an acre of land on our property to the village, and then the village can seek out whichever user they want. We'll be happy to grade the site out, install all the landscaping so it has that green space until the user comes along. We can be as patient as we want because the village will have no money invested in that. We'll maintain it as landscaping until which time the property sells to a future user. So we would be happy to offer that if that's something that the village would like to see. So just a summary and conclusion, I think we hit on this point before, that property hasn't been used to its full potential in quite some time, and why is that? Number of barriers to development. We've got high land costs, multiple parcels which would need to be platted into one, and also when you see multiple parcels, sometimes people kind of pick and choose which ones they want instead of developing the entire site, which can leave you with one piece of property that's undevelopable or remains vacant. There's numerous easement encumbrances, utility conflicts, extensive demolition is required, possible asbestos remediation would be needed, which just increases the cost. Existing leases, developers have passed on this site in the past. I've spoken with one of the most active developers in the Chicago Metro. This was pitched to him before we came along. He turned it down because he believed that it was just an industrial site, and he specializes in retail and restaurants. Additionally, the previous uses, like you mentioned, are no longer operating. I did a little bit of research on Yelp and Google reviews just to try to find out more about those uses when they operated, and I couldn't find any reviews from more recently than I think 2013, 2014. Most of the reviews said the same thing, that the building needed a lot of work, so if somebody did try to revitalize it, would probably have significant costs associated with that. So QuickTrip's proposal, like I said, we are a first-class operator. We're a very socially responsible company. Nobody maintains their sites like we do. We have a full facility support team so that in 10 years after the store is open, it'll look the same as it does on opening day. I recently sold property next to one of our stores to a credit union, national name and everything, who always takes care of their sites. And his exact words to me when we sold it were, well, we're going to have to step our game up now that we sit next to a QuickTrip, because we, as a credit union, we can't look worse than the QuickTrip next door to us. We have a state-of-the-art security system which will alleviate those security concerns that were brought up. We offer multiple employment opportunities and advancement opportunities that come with those. We're a constant machine of promoting from within and moving people up and constantly rehiring and hiring new employees. We have great benefits and wages. We're going to bring those traffic improvements that we've talked about. We'll bring pedestrian improvements. We can truly be a catalyst for positive redevelopment throughout the corridor. We provide a valuable service. We generate significant sales tax. 0 incentives are requested with this proposal. And there is the potential for a restaurant pad site or whatever other use the village might want to see. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
What was your name again, sir?
Andrew Smith.
Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Smith, you have made a lot of great points, and you're here to represent your company, and your job is to represent your company, put your building up. You mentioned a lot of great things that you do for your employees, but my job here is to be the voice for my residents, and my residents at this time are not welcoming this community. So I'm going to stick with board, if we can stick with the Planning and Zoning Committee and go with what they voted, and they voted 7-0 and to deny Quick Tip coming into Alsip.
I mean, I would just like to say I was at the original planning and zoning hearing, and I was very impressed with your presentation. I think you're a great company and would be a great asset to the village. I said my issue is that I live at 122nd and Laramie. So I am most adversely impacted by any additional traffic that this would bring in, especially the additional trucks potentially on 122nd Street. I go through that intersection multiple times a day, and it's an absolute nightmare as it is right now. And I have a fear about what additionally this would cause. I mean, and I even have a coworker that was basically totaled his car at that intersection just a week ago because of the lack of visibility and the in and outs from the existing gas station.
Sure, but I would like to point out that at 122nd, we would be adding the third lane. Additionally, the traffic engineer, third-party licensed, everything, they've projected that traffic increase to the area is only 2%, which isn't even noticeable since it does fluctuate on a 10% basis.
Yeah, as I say, I mean, it just as somebody who lives over there, you absolutely basically I can't get out of my neighborhood between 3 and 6 p.m. It ain't going to happen during those hours because of what's already there. Listen, I just wish we could find another spot for you other than that intersection.
Ma'am, you have to come up.
Ma'am, you can't be heard until you're on the microphone.
I live on 122nd Street, and these trucks are they're getting bigger and longer and all the time. And they stop on the streets, and they block our driveways, and we have a blind spot, and we have a hardest time to get out on 122nd because we can't see both ways, those cars coming. We are fortunate we haven't had a major accident. And also the pollution from the trucks. It's something else. The diesel fuel, the noise, they're dropping their, they're stopping. They got a problem with the truck and they're pulling over and they're putting emergency lights on and they're trying to figure out what's the matter. They also throw garbage out. They are dirty. Truckers are dirty. They pull into a truck stop and they clean out their cab and they throw all their stuff all over the place. Are you telling me that you can control that? I don't think so.
And the light pollution.
To a couple of those. To a couple of those points, first off, regarding trash, we do have systems in place for trash collection. We actually have our employees pick up trash no fewer than 5 times per day. They do it on each shift change, and then they also do it on each shift during the daytime. On top of that, they pick it up as needed if they do see an issue. Our stores are actually...
Well, it all sounds good, sir, but I'm sorry. I don't believe you're going to have the people that can keep that control. I'm sorry.
I worked in the stores for 7 years myself. I did it myself for several years, and we have very motivated employees. We actually have a CSA system, which is our customer service appraisal system, That goes directly to the employee's pay. And additionally, we offer incentives if they get high scores. We evaluate the interior and exterior of our stores, trash collection included, to make sure that we always have a first-class offer at all times. And regarding lighting, we've also already submitted a photometric plan. We have full LED lighting on our lots. So the lighting has already been assessed. Everything's pointed inwards towards the site with shields on our lighting as well.
Sir, can you state your name for the record, please?
Frank Flores, 12009 Lockwood Avenue. Andrew, it sounds like an amazing company. And I'm with the trustee in terms, actually a little bit on everybody. I live on Lockwood. We heard this from a company called Polmax, okay, which has now dumped over 700 to 800 trucks half a block from the street I live on. Okay, oh, we're going to be good neighbors, we're going to do this. I'm sure your employees keep your property clean, but they don't clean the streets, right? You will come in and put something really nice there, I believe that. But you can only control what you can control. Because we hear this from the other trucking company. Well, you know, they lease that spot. We have nothing to do with them peeing out in public where you can see them from the backyards, or running their trucks all frickin' night long, or the smells and the noise and the fires they've had. Oh, fire department was there in 5 minutes. Really? I got to worry about my family dealing with hazmat. Now, granted, you're not putting in anything that big. But my problem with the town in general is all I keep hearing is economics. There is a quality of life issue that needs to be paid attention to in this town, because they don't vote, we do. We do. I'm tired of hearing about economic development at the cost of the lives of 18,000 people in this town. And granted, you got it made, less than 3,000 vote. I get it. I worked for the state of Illinois for 28 years. I get how those schlocks get in there. You are not those, because you are our neighbors. You live in town with us, right? I told the ladies, I kind of giggle at the prostitution thing, because I think we've got a great police department, right? We've got a great fire department. We've got great EMS, and I don't think they would allow that kind of thing to go on. It's the uncontrollable, right? It's what's brought to the town. I mean, you talk about fuel monitoring. Well, that's your EPA guidelines. That's not the guys in this garbage driving around the streets because the state's not enforcing, right? One thing we don't have in town is a lot of truck enforcement officers, because I understand politics too, right? And if somebody on this board says, you don't mess with those truckers, you don't mess with those companies, right? I remember years ago having one of the sergeants on the police department go, oh, we can't mess with them, they work for La Briola. It was another company that worked in town. And we're getting tired of it as residents, and it's not you. You've got a great company. My God, you're the American dream. You're a family company started in the 50s that's gotten this large, that is in so many locations. I'm with you. We need that in town, right? A company that won't take incentives to build. Wow, that's impressive. Since Coca-Cola and all the rest of them putting up all this stuff around us have gotten some real great tax deals for several years. All this fuel revenue, I ain't seen my tax bill go down once in the 21 years I've lived here. Not once. And I'm not talking about the school districts. I know, ladies and gentlemen, you are not responsible for the taxes from the school board. You are for the villages. Okay, so every time I hear this incentives thing and all these tax breaks and it's going to bring in fuel revenue, for who? Whom? Okay, because I don't see it on mine. You know, the idea that, you know, and I'm not trying to pick on you, you know, well, we haven't had any offers in 8 years. Don't mean you jump on the first one. That's that Rahm Emanuel thing. We got all these empty houses, you might as well give them to somebody. No. We don't do that. Andrew, you didn't mention how many truck spots you were going to have, how many pumps you were going to have for semis, and how many spots you would have on that property where trucks can sit in. I think that's what the ladies who live right across the street are worried about. Is these guys sitting there all night, because see, they don't want to pay the rent by my house, right? And they don't want to go all the way to Kedzie to the truck stop that's away from the houses. All right, that's the concern about it being surrounded on three sides by...
Question?
Please, sir.
Because I think it was a very valid point, and that was brought up by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so, let me go back to my updated plan here. So as a result of that comment coming up, we did have 12 to 15 truck parking spaces. Those were intended to be short-term parking. They always are in our locations. We eliminated those entirely just to ensure that that situation doesn't come up. We have 7 bays for the trucks to fuel. The reason for that is to make sure that they don't stay on our lot too long. They can fuel, they can get on their way. That's the nature of our business. We don't offer things like showers or any type of overnight amenities because that's not our business to keep the trucks there for any type of lengthy period of time.
So you'd be in and out. There'd be nothing where some trucker could decide he wants to sit there for the next 8 hours across the street from these ladies' condominiums and keep their engines running all winter long?
Yep, that was entirely the reason that we eliminated those. Even though those were intended to be short-term truck parking, we eliminated them entirely just to eliminate that concern because that's really not the nature of our business.
Okay.
We don't want trucks hanging out on our lot for 8, 10, 12 hours because that's just going to block, the alleyways through our site and everything, and that could cost us business. So even if you don't believe it from a moral standpoint or from a, we're trying to work with you standpoint, from an economic standpoint, the nature of our business, that doesn't make sense.
I apologize for being a little jaded, but we've heard it before. See, that's the problem is when we hear it, thank you, former Mayor Kitching, when we hear, oh, this is going to be great, it's going to be great, it's going to be great, right? I can't take the dog outside because we're swallowing fumes and stuff. So when we hear trucks, we get a little,
Sure, no,
we get a...
That's completely a reasonable position to take. I completely understand that. And not to come off as condescending or anything,
not at all.
Anything at all. I've heard this exact same thing. Yes, you're saying one thing, but what's it going to look like? What's it actually going to be like? And I can tell you, I've had several calls with neighborhood associations where, it was contentious leading up to the hearing. 5 years later, they love our store. They're the first ones to shop there, and they see us as an asset to the community because we maintain our site so well. We pay our employees well. We give them opportunities to grow and succeed beyond just the store. Case in point right here.
Oh, hell, Andrew, I was getting ready to apply for the management program when you said $82,000 a year. I'm set to retire, look out, I'd be the midnight guy. But you have to understand the concerns, and that's what's being echoed through the trustee. I understand the need for development. I mean, it has been empty, and it's an eyesore. Look at 115th and Cicero, ever since they've been empty. I just don't believe we should jump on it. Maybe you could come up with something similar, because my big thing was the trucks. My big thing was the trucks. Obviously, the BP's open all night as it is. The big concern is having something so much larger, that's going to bring in all this added traffic. And I mean, really, to get to the other side of town, I got to go through Oak Lawn, because I can't take 122nd. I want to go to Crestwood to shop, and I have to go west to Ridgeland and go all the way around because I can't get in this area.
And I completely understand it and agree with all those concerns. And to the point about the traffic, we are adding an entirely additional lane on 122nd on our dime, and we'll be...
That impressed me. That infrastructural improvement did impress me.
We'll be happy to dedicate the right-of-way as necessary. We'll repair any sections of the road as necessary, because we don't want any of our customer base to drive over a cracked road or anything like that. That's not in our best interest either. But to your points here, we've heard these concerns from...
Thank you. I'll let you...
Thank you very much, though. We've heard these concerns from both the residents and the Planning and Zoning Commission. So we immediately, I think Roger hit on this, the next day we had an updated plan ready to go because we wanted to work with everybody. We didn't want to just say, hey, we're Quick Trip, here we are, this is what we're doing. We want to work collaboratively with people, and we want to bring forward something that's mutually agreeable and where we've addressed these concerns, such as traffic. Like the traffic engineer who is the expert has shown, we aren't a true traffic generator, not to the extent that it's even noticeable because traffic fluctuates by 10%, as he's pointed out. But these improvements that we're making, such as an additional lane on 122nd, that is noticeable. That is something where we're immediately alleviating the congestion at that intersection, and that's not something that's been mandated to us. That's something we've offered because, like I said before, even if you don't believe from the moral or ethical standpoint, it only makes business sense for us to make that investment to help everything flow better. We don't make money from people blocking our drives to our site. We don't make money from people not being able to access our site and being inconvenient. We want to be convenient, and we also want to do the right thing. So we're going to provide these amenities to help mitigate any impact above and beyond what's actually occurring. And I think that this 8-foot bike path as well should be pointed out more than it has been. And I only brought it up once, but That's an opportunity for a resident to the south or to the north to avoid Cicero entirely. If you're trying to walk in this area, at least as far as our property goes, there's really no situation better than this. You get away from Cicero completely with your own dedicated path. And I think somebody brought up, children going to the park. I mean, what could possibly be better than that? What could be a better path to the park than a bike path through that area? So, again, just all things that we offered to do based on the feedback that we received. So,
Andrew, at your facility, if you were to gain a favorable vote, would you be looking for a liquor license?
we would, yes, because it's an industry standard. But we do take our responsible retailing very seriously. We do internal compliance checks where we send in people who appear to be under the age of 40, and then we have them purchase, beer or something like that. And then we make sure that our employees are carding them. We also have a scanning system for IDs that checks for both the validity of the ID and the expiration date to make sure that the person is of age. So we have a very strict policy for how to deal with that.
With that, would you want any gaming?
We currently do not offer gaming at any of our sites. I personally would not like to completely rule it out in case it is something we explore, but if the village prefers, you can say no gaming at this site because we don't currently offer it anyways. And then somewhere in the future, if we do offer it and we have a system in place for it, we could come back before you and ask for that. But, as of right now, as you can tell, I really like to try to point out where QuitTrip is different than most companies and where we go above and beyond and how we take care of our employees. The thing is with gaming is right now we don't have a system for it because we don't offer it. And I don't have a way to tell you how we do better than what's required of us because we just don't offer it at this point. So we would be acceptable with not having gaming at this time.
Like I said, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And what you're proposing is you will not have any truck parking, whether it's short-term or long-term, in what you're proposing now. There
Yes.
will be no truck parking.
There will be no truck
It'll just be
parking.
fueling only.
Yeah, this kind of like Aqua area, this is where the truck parking was. We've eliminated that with our updated site plan based on the feedback from the community.
And that was 15 spots?
Roughly, yeah. Yeah, we'll call it 15.
There's like 15 truck spots, but you've since taken them completely out.
Yes, they were all along that western extent. And that's also given us the room that if we want to dedicate an acre of property to the village to, be patient as some businesses come back around because we were told that, sit-down restaurant or some other similar use, maybe a bank, maybe something else, small specialty retail wants to come in, then the village has complete and total control of that with zero cost into it because we would take care of it, we would maintain it until that use comes along.
Roger. Gentleman in the back. Thank you.
My name is Jerry Mulvihill. I live at 11912 South Lockwood. I'm not entirely convinced that the amendments made to the plan fix the problems I know that we are seeing over there at that intersection. And without really knowing the impact of what this new business will be on traffic, I just think it's really, really important for us to continue to ask the questions of will this be a benefit for the residents or something that we will continue to struggle with in terms of using that intersection every day, like many of us do. I think that we haven't seen the impact of the Coca-Cola expansion yet. That has not opened yet. We don't know what that eastbound traffic and westbound traffic is going to look like when that happens. I know right now our roadways in the other directions aren't efficient enough. I know I cannot make a left-hand turn going west onto 122nd on my way home. I know that I see dangerous traffic behavior going on. For example, I'm glad our police chief is here. I see drivers driving through the tiny little strip mall where the nail and barber shop is so that they can avoid having to wait in line for a left-hand turn and go up 122nd Street, which I think is a serious concern. When I do turn left onto 122nd and I'm in the westbound direction, I am literally facing cars who've decided to cross over the double yellow line and they're heading right at me as I'm going westbound. They've decided to make the road actually wider than it's supposed to be. I don't know if this fixes that problem. I just don't know, because in the morning when I go to work, there's a line of trucks waiting in there to make the right-hand turn. In the afternoon, it's the same thing. And so I don't know if adding that level of infrastructure is actually going to fix the problem. I stand with my neighbors over here. The safety concerns, the pollution concerns, which we continuously deal with. If you live in Laramie Square and on Lockwood Avenue, I'm concerned about pedestrian safety. And just overall, appreciate the fact that our village wants to have an aggressive economic expansion plan, but also really need to consider the impact every new business has on the residents who live close to those businesses. And I'm opposed to this particular business at this particular time for those reasons. Thank you.
To those points, we'd like to just give everybody an idea of how extensive this additional lane will be. Here's where it currently cuts off. If you really have, 5 or 6 cars probably in a truck, you are completely blocking this entire feet, and it will start to stack back here if you just have those few cars turning left. However, when we add a third lane all the way back to this western edge of our property, you're going to have a significantly greater stacking length for those left turns. And left turns are what takes the longest, because you can turn right on red. You can't turn, well, not legally, you can't turn left on red. So that's going to greatly increase that stacking capacity on 122nd Street and should greatly improve the functionality of this intersection, because those queue lengths will be much lessened than what they are today. Additionally, he did bring up the left turn onto 122nd. We haven't completed a full traffic impact analysis, which it is important to keep in mind exactly what a traffic study does. On the preliminary analysis, he can tell you basically, is this use appropriate, yes or no, those types of things, and give you a general idea of traffic impacts. But as far as analyzing the signals and everything, that will come with a full traffic analysis. And part of that, they'll look at signal timing. We recently had one where a traffic signal was grading out at like an F on a left turn, which it's an A through F rating, and D and above is acceptable. When we adjusted the signal timing by like 2 seconds, it turned it all the way from an F to a B. So those are things that we'll be happy to look at. And obviously anything that needs to be adjusted there would be on our dime, since no incentives are requested at this time. As far as our impact to 122nd, adding an additional lane the entire length of our property is, I think is pretty substantial. Anything beyond that would be probably the property owners west of here. Understand there's been other things that have been approved west of us. The Coke expansion, I think I was reading on the village's website, everyone was pretty excited about a truck repair facility at about 115th and Central, if that sounds right, which those trucks would be, that's truly a destination for trucks, so they would be turning here in 122nd. They wouldn't take the long way around Cicero if they didn't have to. Versus, we are truly a capturer of traffic, which our traffic engineer agrees with. We don't generate trucks to the area. We can't bring trucks to the area. If we could build this literally anywhere. But we are very, very location specific, because we have to capture those existing traffic patterns. Even with Cicero, IDOT's website shows that there's 3,000 trucks a day in front of our site. That's an average annual traffic, so you can multiply by 7 to get to about 20,000 trucks a week. Given that trucks hold quite a bit of fuel, if we capture a very, very small percentage of that, we will have a very, very successful use here. We don't need to generate trucks to the area, because they're already existing based on so many of the things that have been developed in this area and all the industrial in practically every direction of the site. We've got a small industrial use straight south. We've got industrial to the west. Even north on the east side of Cicero, you have industrial through there. So all that traffic is existing. If we even have a generation to that where we add a small percentage, it's not even noticeable based on the way traffic fluctuates. And I think you can make an argument too that, a street like Cicero, if you're not traveling on Cicero today, there's probably a reason. You're probably specifically avoiding Cicero because, one, it's either not the fastest path to where you want to go, or you're specifically avoiding the traffic. If we're more off the beaten path, then you could say, yes, on a lesser traffic street, people might go out of their way to shop with us, but the overall capacity of traffic required to support our use is more than sufficient on Cicero, both cars and trucks. It's all existing. So the traffic that we would generate would be a very, very, very small percentage, especially compared to the traffic improvements that we're offering. I think the last person also mentioned, for safety for pedestrians, on 122nd, you just have a very small section of sidewalk, and I don't even know if that's intended to be a public sidewalk. It doesn't really look like it, but we'll have a sidewalk all the way down 122nd. We'll have a sidewalk. We'll replace this sidewalk on Cicero. We'll add a sidewalk, or that's 123rd. Sorry. We'll add a sidewalk on 122nd and the bike path to be able to completely avoid Cicero if you're walking the area. It's really hard to picture a safer solution for pedestrians in that area. I mean, to completely avoid Cicero and not have to trespass on private property to do it and have a dedicated path and we'll be happy to maintain that too. So it's not even a cost to the village. I mean, we're coming to your village. We just want to be a responsible corporate citizen. We've taken all your feedback to heart, and we've provided several changes to help address all of these concerns that have been brought up. So.
Go ahead, sir. Please.
My name is Don Arneberg. I am the board secretary for the Laramie Square 2 Condominium Association, which stretches from 4812 to 4866 West 122nd Street. I bet your traffic engineer doesn't live over there. As far as the third lane is concerned, all that's going to do is make it easier to accommodate even more traffic. Our lives are already purgatorial because of the traffic that exists now, and our peace will be utterly shattered by having a 24/7 operation right outside our front window. How much more do you need to hear before you accept the other commission's recommendation to deny this request? Thank you.
To the first point about the additional stacking doesn't generate traffic. The uses that are along the west side there are what generate traffic. We're just providing an improvement to help facilitate that traffic flow in the area to make things safer. Additionally, there was a point about a 24-hour use. We're actually pushing the activity further from the condominiums. If that were redeveloped as an event space with events going on till 2, 3 in the morning, or if it was a bar with people stumbling in and out all hours of the night, you'd have more activity closer versus we're pushing that further south and creating much more of a green space. And if there's a concern with noise or something, I mean, we could always do like a masonry wall or something along the property line there to help provide an even better buffer and block lights even better. I mean, we're happy to look into all the design elements to help accommodate that concern, because that's important to us. We look at the entire public as our clientele, and if we're not, our saying is, if we're not taking care of the customer, then we better be taking care of the people who are. So, we want to provide the best possible facility for our employees, and we want to make sure that they're providing the best possible service to our customers, and that goes beyond just the face-to-face customer service. It goes with the offer that we bring. So, we're happy to look into design elements to help alleviate those concerns about noise or anything like that.
Ma'am.
I've sat here and I've listened to you tell us how wonderful you are as a company, how great you are to your employees. Wonderful. I have yet to hear you say how great you're going to be for the neighbors. Let's not count the traffic. Just what are you going to do for the neighbors? What do you go for the people that live in this area? There's other places you can put your gas station. Put it back where the trucks are. Put it west. Go over to 115th and Cicero, where you don't have neighbors. You don't have people living. Tell me what you're going to do for us. What advantage are you going to be to us? None. None. You're just going to be a hindrance. You're great for your employees, but not for the people that live in Alsip.
Thank you very much. Absolutely understand the concern. I'd like to hit the point that I did just bring up, that, we're happy to provide additional improvements to help alleviate those concerns, whether it be noise or lighting or anything like that. Absolutely happy to continue to work with the village staff to come.
You know what, forget on that again, forget that. You're not telling us how you're going to be good for us. You're going to help with the lighting? No, the lighting's going to still be there. What are you going to do for us? What are you going to do for all these people that live in this whole area? Not just on our association, the ones around, the ones down the block. What are you going to do for us?
A few major things that we will bring, that we are doing, and I've hit on these a couple times, but happy to go back through them, is we are adding an additional lane on 122nd, which will greatly increase the stacking and help the traffic flow at that signal. Additionally, we are bringing pedestrian amenities such as sidewalks on all 3 frontages, which don't exist today. The bike path is also going to be a great pedestrian amenity above and beyond what exists today, because that's not currently there. So if somebody's walking in the area, they can completely avoid Cicero. That's a much safer situation for the residents and the...
That is not, people, this is not a place we walk. Alsip on Cicero Avenue is not any place any of us want to walk.
Sure. The reason I bring it up because... the reason I bring it up, though, is because it was a specific concern from the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting where somebody referenced that I think her words were that she was taking her life in her hands when she walks in the area and wanted better pedestrian amenities. So that's the reason I bring that up. So, but yes, we take very great pride in our sites. We offer great security for our sites, which is a major detriment to any negative activity. We take care of our sites. We take care of the landscaping, the building presentation, and everything, which can be a very positive catalyst for development in the area. We see that a lot of our neighbors, have to up their game when they see our sites. Other businesses in the area will say, you know what, we can't look worse than the Quick Trip. Quick Trip does all these great things with their landscaping, and those are things that we need to emulate. And we take care of the trash. We have all sorts of opportunities for our employees above and beyond the stores. And additionally, like I did say at the beginning of my presentation, we do great work with charities to help foster great.
Okay, Mr. Smith, I think being the chair of planning and zoning, like I said, my email was flooded with residents' concerns, and they wanted me to deny you guys coming. Not one resident sent me an email in favor of. So, I mean, really at this point, I think we're beating a dead horse, so if we can move on. I mean, unless anyone else has something to say, but I think...
And that's fine. I mean, we're not here to render a decision this evening. So it was for discussion purposes. Appreciate everyone voicing. Oh, sure, go ahead.
Just one question. Your center also fuels automobiles, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So one concern that I haven't heard yet tonight is how are these smaller gas stations going to compete with you? So I would hate to see a business go under. I mean, how can they possibly compete with this? This is this is unbelievable.
Understandable concern.
So,
like I had said before, if we capture a very small, like Cicero has 50,000 cars a day according to IDOT. We obviously will not capture 50,000 cars a day. If we capture a very, very small percentage of that, we will have a very successful store. We have, I believe that's branded as a Circle K next to our Circle K BP. In our Arizona market, Circle K has something like 400 to 500 different locations because they're actually based out of Tempe. There's no fewer than probably 50 to 60 instances where we sit at the same intersection as a Circle K. Both do just fine. It just kind of comes with how we site select. And then the site on the other side of Cicero actually captures kind of a different traffic pattern, being on the opposite side of the street, so they should absolutely do just fine. Circle K's very, very rarely close.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Once again, thank you. The board, it's not up for a vote this evening. It was for discussion purposes only, and it'll be addressed at a later time. Anything else from the committee?
No, just to let the residents know, next week is the vote for this facility to come in. The vote was not today, it's next week, Monday. No, wait.
June 7th.
I'm sorry,
June 7th. We don't have a
June
meeting
7th,
next Monday.
Memorial's Day next Monday.
It's in Clerk on the website.
June 7th, right?
Yes, June 7th.
So June 7th is the vote. 7. 7:30.
Anything else, trustee?
No, that's all. Thank
Okay.
you.
Does anyone have any presentations, petitions, or communications?
Can we,
Unfinished business?
I'm sorry, can we go back to number 3, under ordinance and or
Discussion of a
Planning.
case. The I-2, okay, discussion of a case number 2017-5-S-100 for an I-2 industrial to an I-2 special use to allow for transportation logistics for the property located at 11633 South Mayfield. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a hearing on Wednesday, June 14, 2017, with a 5-0 vote in favor of.
The reason why this came up back in June of 2017, it was put on the agenda, but it was never voted on the following week. I don't know a reason for it. It was brought up, but there was never a vote to obtain the ordinance. So we need an ordinance. They are presently looking to sell, so there will need to be a special use ordinance put in place. And I believe that the prospective owners are here, if you guys would like to hear from them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chuck?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen,
Evening.
honorable trustees. My name is Tony Parika. I represent the current owner and occupant of the business known as ILG Logistics International. ILG Logistics International has been at this location for about 4 years. The meeting that was mentioned here that took place in June of 2017, where 5-0 approval of the zoning board and planning board was given. And we have, in fact, if I may pass some information out just for your information.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to go over this very briefly, the Village of Alsip Committee met June 26th, passed this matter. The actual hearing took place on June 14, 2017, before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and there it also passed 5-0. So it was just an oversight. Typically, a village board will approve the zoning committee report within 45 days via an ordinance that would be passed. In this case, for some reason or another, that was overlooked, and that issue just came up as we were preparing to transfer the property. The property here is being used as a logistics location for about 40 trucks and trailers. Generally, they come in at 5 o'clock in the morning, they come back about 3, 4 in the afternoon. The maintenance is just for the trucks owned by the company. It's not for any outside servicing of any vehicles. The location has a fire hydrant right in front, literally right in front of the entrance. There are manhole drainage area, 2 in the front of the property, and there are 3 along the way, so there's no issue with respect to any flooding or any of that sort. The gentleman who is buying is also a business owner in town for a number of years. Mr. Dardovsky, who I believe is also present here. Good afternoon, good evening, rather. He owns property at 5730 West 120th, as well as at 11659 through 11701 South Mayfield, just south of this property. He does trailer repairs and runs a very successful business. The current occupant, ILG Logistics International, will continue to operate as they are currently and as they have for the last 4 years. This is a sale leaseback, so they are going to sell the location with the buildings and the garages, but are going to continue to lease on a long-term basis the property for continued use as it is. So there will be no change in terms of traffic pattern, usage, or anything else. The corporation, ILG International Logistics, has a license to operate. They just renewed it, so they're in good standing until April of 2022. They will continue to operate as they have and continue to be a responsible citizen of this community. So we look forward to your approval and favorable consideration. Happy to answer any questions. We have the current owner, the new owner, as well as the new owner's attorney. They close on the deal here, as well as the brokers who are present, so we're prepared to answer any questions that you might have.
I appreciate it, and I apologize for the oversight. And when we have this come up for vote on the 7th, my expectation is that with the Planning and Zoning Commission unanimous in favor of, and something that we certainly should have addressed within that time frame back then, I don't see an issue. I can't speak for the board, though, but we will certainly bring that up for the vote. Does the board have questions of the matter at this point in time? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Monica, did we take our number 4? I apologize.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Back to unfinished business, anybody?
No.
New business? Call for an adjournment, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned at 9 o'clock, and let's take about 5 minutes, and we'll come back to our special board meeting. Thank you.